takes the left, someone takes the center, but it's a little bit more mixed today, which is great. So you obviously have had an exciting medical student now, as medical, you're almost on your transition to internship. So you get to be called a real doctor once you graduate, which is great. Do people know where they want to go? It's a bit like Harry Potter and the Sorting Hat. Like, who's interested in medical? Oh yeah, a couple. Who wants to be a surgeon? Yeah, a couple. Even less. Who wants to do GP? Couple. Who wants to do like the radiology, derm, specialty? Okay, few. Who doesn't know what they want to do yet? Oh yeah, the vast majority. Who wants to do medical admin? Oh, we have one person. So George is our executive director. George, can you hire him? Done. You've got a job. Don't worry about your internship. Come by later. And who wants to have fun? Yeah, you'll have loads of fun at Charlie's. Great. So this is a little bit of a topic of what we're going to talk about. We've already started with pizza and drinks, but we'll start off with a whole bunch of people talking to you. So we'll start off straight with the big boss of the hospital, which is Dr. George Iskander. He's the acting executive director of this hospital, but he's normally the director of clinical services and is responsible for all medical staff. So put your hands together for George. And here you go.
Thank you, Deepan. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your amazing comedy and DJ skills. Didn't know you could do that.
I could bring a DJ mixer next time.
Or a big clown hat, maybe.
Yeah.
I'd like to acknowledge now which we meet, the Wajak people of the Noongar Nation, and we pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. Congratulations on getting this far in, and you haven't been thrown off the course, so you're almost there. Every time I do this talk, I'm always just amazed at how young everyone looks, and this year it's no different, and I've got to make sure I shave my head off so I can almost match how amazing you all look. And I remember in 2009 when I finished, I was sitting in this very similar lecture theatre in the UK in London, and our medical director came in to come and say hello, in a very similar audience. He was, I'm going to guess, over 60, he had lots of grey hair. And he came in and he told us all that being an intern is about surviving, not killing anyone, and don't come into his office. And that's all I can remember from that time. And I'm really glad to sort of acknowledge that times have moved on since then. So hopefully you'll come and join us at Charlie's and at North Metro. And this is, I think, in my very biased opinion, the only health service which has its GMOs at the genuine heart of what it does. You are our specialists of the future. You are going to look after all of us, myself included, of my arthritis and all my aches and pains in not very long. And if we don't look after you, then we're not going to have a workforce. So come to us and we will make sure you have the best time. We celebrate, embrace genuine part-time opportunities. If you want to come and do a really really weird mix of FTE or placements, let us know. We'll work with you. You will most importantly get your overtime paid. You come here, we will guarantee you get it paid. No consultant pushback, no paperwork, simply submit it online. And we'll make sure that you get your leave. Last year, I think we went up from a 33% leave approval rate to more than 90%. And that's with the amazing work of what Dina and her team are doing. And we'll make sure that all of your leave is backfilled. And most importantly, we'll make sure it's a nice place to work. We take cultural safety really seriously. And we take poor conduct incredibly seriously. So if you come here, what we can guarantee you is you'll be supported. It's pretty scary being an intern for the first time, particularly in the quaternary hospital. But we'll make sure that our consultants look after you. And if you have concerns, you can raise them with myself, with Deepan, with Robbie, with anyone else in the room, and we will do our utmost to make sure it gets fixed for you. And finally, we have a medical workforce team who are, in my biased opinion, world class at what they do. Because what they do is they put doctors at the heart of their business. So you don't come here respond to an adminoid. They're here to work for you. And that includes after hours when people go on sick or whatever else happens. There'll be someone there all the time to make sure that you get supported and get filled. So our vision is really, really straightforward. It's being the best hospital in the world to be a doctor, and it starts at being a GMO. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great time.
Yep. So there you go. That's a speech from George. I have to clap true because he's my boss. And if I don't, no, I'm kidding. But just to give you an idea, because we are electronic, here's an online portal with everything. So you'll get that when you come in and get oriented. So moving on, so we thank George. I want to introduce Mr. Jonathan Fu. He's our DCT, or Director of Clinical Training of Surgery, but he's here to give you a talk about what's it like being a doctor. And put your hands together, because he's a well-renowned surgeon, deals a lot with gen surge, upper GI. You might have to work with him. Also does bariatric surgery, and he wears a much better suit than I do.
Thanks, Deepan, although I'm wearing jeans. Nice to meet you all. I'm Jonathan, and I'm one of the upper GI surgeons here at Charlie's. And it's amazing to see you guys all. I was sitting where you guys were in 2004. And I come here every year and I think of, it's quite a reflective period for me to think of, what has changed. And it's amazing because I see you guys, and then I see you guys on the wards and progressing into becoming RMOs and registrars and fellows. And it's a exciting and scary time. So you're going to be a doctor, and I guess, you think to yourself, well, what is a doctor? Like, what is actually our role in this modern hospital, in the modern healthcare system? And essentially, when it boils down to it, your purpose here, your job, is to apply scientific principles into areas of uncertainty. The hospital can't function until you say this is a problem. Do they have chest? If they've got chest pain, is it cardiac, or is it thoracic, or is it esophageal? And so our role is to apply sort of what we know in science and start the algorithm of the hospital going. And that's what you've trained for. Now, the next step is becoming an intern. And being an intern can be a little bit different. And George talked about, modern healthcare systems and how you fit in. And there's no denying that modern healthcare systems basically are incredibly complex, and we're involved in reducing variance. So how do you reduce variance and maintain a high quality health system? And it looks like this, that somehow the patient survives because it all works. And as an intern, you're basically motorcyclist C. And that's the challenge here. How you become a cog in a system, but how do we give you quality? How do we give you, how do we make your job worthwhile, and how do we help you progress through the system? And as I say, it's completely arcane. Your first day, it will feel like, how does this all work? And it's our job at Charlie's to help you through it and help you progress. Because, I remember my first week as intern, I had no idea what was going on. And I didn't refer anyone to clinic because I didn't realize it was my job. I didn't refer. I put a cannula into someone and gave them a heart attack, and it was terrible. And that's all relative though. And you just need to know that we will look after you. And at Charlie's, you have a good team of support. And as consultants, we understand what you've gone through. And it's our job to help you through that process. And for me, it was crazy. Like, this is an example of my year as an intern. This is in New Zealand though, so it was a bit different. You think everything's doing fine, you start nights, and then just, you think think after hours is fine, and this happens. And it'll be okay, is I guess all I'm saying, is that we've worked really hard to make sure that while this may happen, we take good care of you. The other thing that you realize is that you sit here and everyone's like, I'm going to be a surgeon. I'm going to do medical administration. I have a plan. Like, it's all sorted. And you just need to know that the vast majority of you guys will end up doing something completely different to what you turn out in medical school. And it feels like everyone's progressing in their careers, but they're not. And it feels like, if I don't pick something now, I'll lose out. And that's not true at all. The vast majority of people end up picking jobs, end up picking a career based on their mentors. That somewhere in the next sort of 3 to 4 years, you'll meet a consultant colleague and you'll say, that's who I want to be. So some of us say, I want to be a surgeon, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon in spines, and that's all I'm going to be. But just so you know, coming out the other end, nearly 20 years later, when I look at my medical school class, the people who thought that didn't end up doing it, and people you never thought who will be at the Cleveland Clinic are at the Cleveland Clinic. And again, it's our job at Charlie's to help you find that. And for those who haven't picked a hospital, pick the hospital that you think you're going to find good mentors, that your consultants are engaged in your career, actively interested, because it's only then that you're going to find the right mentor. And George alluded to this, we do know what you want: pay, leave, and career opportunities. As a DCT, my interest is in, because I can't do anything about your pay or leave, but career opportunities. And that's what we're interested in. And you'll find that while I'm one of the many DCTs, it's what happens after internship that really matters. Everyone can, get through and be registered by APRA, but what do you do after that? And at Charlie's, we're interested in, surgery. Are you going to become a surgeon? And there's a pathway for that with me for an 18-month BSSP course. There is a physician pathway, and that's with Dr. Lane and the BPT pathway. And we are planning to set up sort of ICU and critical care pathways as well. And there's also as well as ED and the other streams. So there's a lot of opportunity here for us. And this will feel like at the end of your intern year, all right? It will feel like you've achieved so much. And that's what's going to happen. Absolutely, absolute promise, okay? But that's just a start. That's the crazy thing, what I said to you before about career opportunities. You'll be like, I'm a doctor now. But no, you're at the start of, so actually a pretty amazing journey. And the next step is finding career opportunities. The next step is finding your springboard, okay? And that's what we're here for. And that's what often a lot of people say at Charlie's, that we help you find your careers. Because this is the crazy thing, right? At your level, you literally can be anything you want anywhere in the world. Like you have now in your hand, hopefully in a few months' time, a degree. And a degree that lets you go anywhere in the world, that lets you do pretty much, any specialty you want is in front of you. I am now shoehorned into doing esophagogastric cancer bariatric surgery for the next 20 years of my life. But you guys are literally you have unlimited options. And that's can be scary, but it's a really exciting time. And I urge you to really think about, that the world is your oyster. You might want to stay in WA, you might not, but you have this chance to see the world. Anywhere in the world is the medicine is at a disruptive phase with AI and with telehealth and changes in how we work and with robotics. This is your future. And look, come to Charlie's. There are a lot of world-renowned experts here, experts in their field, and they help you find the springboard to these opportunities. And that's really it.
Thank you, Jonna, for that inspiring speech. So next we'll actually move on to hear from people who work on the floor. So we're going to talk to our RMO Society representatives. So I'll ask Dr. Roberta Dombrava to come down as the current co-president of the RMO Society to say a few words. Put your hands together.
I'll also ask my other committee members to join me, so I have some friends. Now, we're the RMO Society, and just to clarify, we're not actually associated with medical workforce. So we are a volunteer organisation that's not student, but basically colleague run. So it's all residents. And these are a couple of my fantastic committee members. Now, my name is Roberta, but you can call me Robbie. I'm PGY3, and this year I'm the co-president of the RMO Society with Ellen. Ellen, however, is having a really fun time in Europe at the moment because she got a lot of approved leave, which is one of the many perks of being at Charlie's this year. Now, my other fantastic colleagues here, just going from, I guess, right to left, we've got Tim on the end. He's one of our most senior and esteemed members of the committee. He was also the co-president last year, so he brings a wealth of experience with him. Next up, we've got Tat. She's our little bright shining light. She connects us with PMCWA, and she basically makes sure that what's happening here at Charlie's is kind of what's happening everywhere else at Fish and at Royal Perth, and we're kind of keeping up with them. Next, we've got Dev, our fantastic education officer this year. He is very knowledgeable, he's very determined, and he set up some fantastic programs this year. We've next got Pudge, who's our treasurer. He's our intern on the committee this year. So he's on the ground, so he'll be able to tell you exactly what it's like, and he's kind of closer to your level, so he'll be able to tell you all the ins and outs of what's happening. And then lastly, but not least, we've got Venice. She is also a really bright spark in our committee. She's our wellbeing officer, and she's very passionate about making sure that you guys have a good experience at Charlie's. Alrighty. Now, at a glance, there's a ton of things that make Charlie's really good. And the reason we're here is because we do love Charlie's. We've on this committee because we've had a fantastic time at Charlie's, and we're not just saying that because we're trying to sell it and because our bosses are here. We actually do really, really love it. And I'm just going to try to go through this really quickly because what I want is for you guys to ask our panel questions because you've got us here. We're only a few years ahead of you, and we'll be able to actually tell you what life is like on the wards. So try to think of some questions in the meantime, and I'll try to blitz through some of these points that you may or may not know. But at a glance, Charlie's has a really good broad range of specialties that some other hospitals don't actually have, and that's something to keep in mind. We'll go through them in a second, but particularly with our neurosurgical state department here in Nisswa, that's a really important thing to consider, or our sarcoma unit. Those things you won't really find anywhere else. We've also got so much teaching. I've put 3 pluses because every single day, Med Ed and Med Workforce will send you a text message about the 6 or 7 different teaching sessions that are on that week. There is a ton of stuff. There is intern teaching, resident teaching. There is basic surgical program teaching. There is also respiratory teaching. There's now pathology teaching. You're actually going to have so many options that you're going to be sick of it, really. There's going to be so many that you won't even be able to go to, but there'll be so many that you can go to that you're interested in. So there's a lot of options to really develop your skills, and not only just from like a didactical teaching point of view with slides, there's a lot of procedural stuff that you can learn as well. So we have ultrasound guided cannulation, we do taps, and all that kind of stuff on Wednesdays in our teaching lab as well. So keep that in mind. We've also touched on this, but centralized overtime, this was a big game changer. And I'll just quickly do a little diversion here because I was at Charlie's when I was an intern and I'm now PGY3, so my 3rd year out, and it wasn't centralized the first time I was here. So you used to have to actually go to the consultant, the head of department, and say, hey, I've worked these extra hours. Can you please pay me? And that can be really scary sometimes. Sometimes you feel you're not efficient. There might be other reasons you don't want to claim it. But now that it's centralized, that fear is gone. And I can tell you that 100% of leave from everyone on this panel can attest that we've gotten our overtime. We've gotten paid for what we're actually doing, which is fantastic. The second thing is easy access to leave. Case in point, Ellen, my co-president, is on like 2 months of leave in Europe. She's just living her life. And that's a really important thing. It's really important that you guys get professional development leave. It's important that you get time with your family and get your annual leave. And sometimes that can be really hard if you don't have a department that's putting your well-being at the forefront. But Deepan and George, they are really committed to making sure that you guys don't burn out and that you guys actually get sufficient time to recover from everything that happens on the wards, because it can be really overwhelming and sometimes you just need that space. The other thing is that our after hours team has improved, which we'll get into a bit later. But also just a little plug, the RMO Society, we are super involved. We have a direct link with Med Exec. We like to make sure we keep them in the loop and they keep us in the loop. And that relationship is really important because sometimes if stuff's happening down at a junior level and we don't feed it back, we're all just complaining, but where's that going to go? Nowhere. As soon as I text George or I text Deepan, they basically say, yep, sorted, we're on it. And it's usually within a week that I'll see something happen. For example, we asked that cannulas, day 3 cannulas, be something of the past. And that policy is actually in the works for after hours. And that's a big deal because you're going to get sick of doing cannulas. You're going to get sick of doing cannulas that are not really necessary when there's like one extra dose of antibiotics that needs to go through, and the patient will be fine if they just get that and we just change them over to orals. So that's actually a really important thing, to have a exec that listens to you and have a committee that is really advocating for you and making sure that you have a good experience. And on top of that, we run really fun social events. We like to do what we call like a wine and wine. So we'll have our monthly drinks where you come down, you talk about what's happening in your life and what's happening on the wards. And it's really nice just to kind of talk across and talk to like people who understand what you're going through and say, hey, something similar happened to me, and commiserate over that. That's really important. So we like to make sure that we can make those opportunities for you to actually speak to colleagues, make friends, and make sure that you have someone who can support you. And also there's a ton of awesome coffee spots, which we'll get to. Now, back to those unique specialties. We have the only kidney and liver transplant service in the state. Really important, not only if you're surgically inclined or transplant inclined, but with our basic physician training program, a lot of long cases actually come up from those patients, and they're really important to go and see if you're interested in BPT, for example. We also have the state neurosurgical service. You're going to see a lot of cool things if you do neurosurgery. We also have NISWA, which is a 24-hour service. That's an interventional service for stroke. And at the moment, I'm on med specs, and it's been a really good experience to see different clinical presentations for stroke, and it's interesting every single time. It's never just like the textbook. So it's a really great thing to be involved with if you're at Charlie's. We also have a sarcoma service here because we have the expertise with a couple of consultants here who run that. And also our oncology service is also boasted by a radiotherapy service as well. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind about something that's a bit different from the other hospitals in the state. In terms of teaching, I mentioned it before, you're going to get saturated with teaching, and that's a good thing. You want to be able to have opportunity to develop those skills and to not sort of rest on your laurels, because sometimes you'll be 6 months in, you're like, oh, I've been doing discharge summaries for 6 months. How do I treat APO? I can't quite remember. And then you get that text from Med Workforce and they'll say, APO teaching, Thursday, 12 o'clock, food provided. And that's going to really incentivize you to go. As I mentioned, you'll get compulsory intern teaching weekly. There's RMO teaching now. So that means that it doesn't stop when you're an intern. You just keep learning and you keep experiencing and learning from different people, which is excellent. We have the basic surgical stream as well. So if you're surgically inclined, we have teaching every week for that as well, and journal clubs, and we have support if you want to sit the GSSE, which is the surgical exam primary. The other thing I really am proud of to mention is that the BPT pass rate this year for the written exam was 82% at Charlie's, which was the highest in the state. So there was a lot of support. I saw a lot of the registrars helping out their colleagues to do long case practice, and there was a lot of support from consultants and mentors for those registrars to really pass this exam. They're really invested in making sure that you do well and that you guys are able to have all the resources that you need to do well. And that's very important. The other thing that we have now is bedside tutorials. So we have Dev to thank for that. That's up and running. And that's just nice to have some hands-on experience now, not just sitting in a lecture theatre, pardon me, but also being able to actually see clinical signs in patients. I'm actually going to invite Dev to come up now because he's actually got a bit more insight into what's happening with BPT. And I think it's important that we kind of highlight this for those who are medically inclined, because Charlie's has a lot of really great subspecialties. All right, thank you, Dev.
Thanks, Robbie. I'll be brief when talking about it, but if you have any really specific questions, I'm going to be here afterwards, so you can ask me or you can ask us on the panel. I'm biased, but I think the BPT program at Charlie's is excellent, and that's why I chose to come here, even though most of my friends went to Fiona Stanley and RPH. I think we have a great range of specialties, but our BPT 1 year is unique because we can go to St. John of God Subi for a year of very well supported, very structured teaching, where you will get medical specialty rotations and you won't have to do any leave relief and any after hours. And that's a huge advantage, especially when you're doing short cases and long cases from your first year, because then you go into BPT 2, into your study year, and you're really in a good place to layer on additional knowledge on top of your great foundation that you built. And I think that reflects in our pass rate and in our clinical exams. Additionally, even if you stay at Charlie's for your BPT 1, 2, BPT 3, you're going to have fantastic support because you're going to be with a mentor from BPT 1. You're going to, of course, have your educational and PDL mentors. But Trish Lee and Fiona Lake and Heather Lane are really good at creating a very robust education program. So we have journal club every week. We have medical lectures every week. And on top of that, you have the college lecture series, which is 3 lectures a week. So there's too many lectures, as Robbie said, but it's good because you're always learning. And then when you get close to exams, there's going to be practice long cases, practice short cases. There's practice written exams. There's public long cases. So even if you're just interested in medicine and you don't want to do BPT, you can listen into those things and learn. So Charlie's is a fantastic place to do BPT and to do physician training. So yeah, definitely come if you're interested in that.
Thank you so much, Dev. I'll try to blitz through the rest of it because I'm sure you want to hear from the rest of our panel. I just wanted to highlight something because it's obviously public knowledge and I want us to be able to check in. So I don't know if you all know what this is. Does anyone not know what it is? Just raise your hand. All right, good. We all know. So the hospital health check. So this is basically a survey that is run by the AMA, and they basically survey us every year just to see how we're going from multiple points of view. It does look pretty abysmal. I'm not going to lie. Consistently, it's been not fantastic, and that's because it is stressful being an intern, which is why we talked about having all that well-being and making sure that we put you at the center. The thing that I want to highlight though is that Charlie's is improving year to year, and we don't have this year's health check yet. We've only just finished putting it in, but I'm fairly confident that we're going to blow it out of the water this year. So that's why I'm kind of highlighting it to you guys now to keep your eye out for this hospital health check, because I think it's going to be really telling when you actually see the health check to figure out what's the culture like in the hospital that I'm applying to. Do the junior doctors feel cared for? Do they feel that they've got enough support? Because those things are really going to matter to you next year. I know that right now you feel in a bit of a cloud, like I just need to finish MD4. I just need to like get through my final year. I've got exams. You're all smart, capable individuals. You're going to be fine. The thing that you need to think about is that medically, you're going to keep learning. There's always going to be opportunities to learn. But what environment are you going to put yourself in to optimize everything else in life? Because it's not just medicine. You've got family, you've got lives outside of medicine, and making sure that the environment at work is going to be sustainable and something that is supportive is very important. And this is a really good indication because this is the junior doctors speaking. This isn't, hospital exec. This isn't just some PR exercise. It's important to actually look at this. So this year, take a look. But I just want to highlight that Charlie's has continued to improve. And I think with Deepan and George here, they've already made significant changes, as I mentioned, with the central overtime and making sure that we get some leave for you guys, which is very important. And that leads me on to wellbeing. We're going to keep saying it again and again. It's a really big deal to get your overtime paid and to not have to fight for it. It's a really big deal to be able to get leave and get it approved within a timely manner. It's a really big deal to get your rosters in a timely manner as well. And I can tell you that the consultants here sitting in on those med exec meetings, they are committed. And that's not just me paying lip service. They really, really want you guys to be well taken care of and they want to do right by you. And so I just want to reinforce that because they are working very hard at the moment to make sure that Charlie's keeps improving and that it's the best experience it can be for you guys next year. Alrighty, once again, a little plug about what we do. So the Charlie's RMO Society, we really need to make sure that you guys have fun social events to look forward to. We throw cocktail parties, quiz nights. We make sure that there's end of month drinks. We make sure there's end of term drinks. We do JMO of the month. We like to tell you when your colleagues have made some nice comments and have voted and said that you were amazing in your last term. And we like to send those emails out and let you know, hey, this is what this registrar said about you. This is what this consultant said about you. Because I think it's really good to hear positive feedback. The other thing that we do is we advocate for you and we sit in and make sure that MedExec can hear from you guys. And if you're too obviously timid to speak up, we're able to do that for you. The other thing is that we look after the doctor's common room, which is going to be your mothership, and it's going to be a really important place to go and to have some time to debrief and to just reset if you're having a really stressful day on the ward. And the thing to note is that we, as a society, for our RMO financial members, we put on cinnamon scrolls every Tuesday, and we do saucy rolls on a Friday, and they are amazing. I mean, you can see the committee nodding. It's like the highlight of most people's week, and the whole thing just revolves around when are we going to get Cindy scrolls? When after the ward round we're going to get saucy scrolls? It's a really big deal, and it's a really good time to just mingle and see what your friends are doing on the wards. Alrighty, I think that's enough from me. I've just put this up here just to kind of let you know that there is so many coffee options, and this is going to be a big debate, I'm sure, next year amongst all of you about which coffee place to go. And I'm sure that my committee members are laughing because I've put it together with absolutely no input from them. So it's very, very biased. But yes, I do have my favourites. And I'm sure you will find your favourites around here, but there's plenty of places to have food and drinks. All right. I think it's now time for you guys to ask some questions. And I will let the committee take on this part. I'll stand here and I'll MC and I'll call out if you guys are quiet, but if you guys have a question, just shout it out, raise your hand. If you're a bit too timid, I do have my mobile phone number up there, which I mean could be hazardous, but text through a question if you're feeling too shy. All right. Nicole. Oh, you hit us hard, didn't you? You did your research. Parking's abysmal everywhere. I think that's what I'm going to say from the top end, but I'm going to let my committee speak on that a bit further.
There's a really long line at certain times of the day, and the peak hour is really long. I live locally, it has taken me to get from door to parking. But if you're coming at different times, you come a little bit earlier, it's usually all hospitals do that kind of make sure that it's unfortunate. It's not as bad because everyone says like
Yeah, I think if you're trying to get into the car park at 7:55 and the water runs at 8 a.m., then you're not going to make it. But if you're organised and you're getting into the car park around 7:30, 7:40, and you're going to get to the water run,
if you've got an appointment to go to in the afternoon, don't try leaving unless you can do it, because you'll be filling up on the end floor. And the same as well, like on the afternoon, we would start working on actually leave the first floor blocked off until around lunchtime for people who start working over. So everywhere else is full except for that.
that was actually really nice working like evenings and nights. You felt like say going back to the car because you always park on the first floor. So I kind of, it's not nice walking up that kind of stairwell or into the living room. It's up to the higher floor, so it's nice in the evenings to just go to the first floor.
Oh, and also if you park there, just remember when you park. Friday afternoon when you get out early, and spend an hour with your car.
Any other questions? Yes.
What are the opportunities for like river rotations and
I did 2 rotations in my extended. I don't know if I'm competitive this year, but I think I said in the international. Yes, like 2 there. There were 10-1 and 10-5, which was not ideal, but it was a great experience nonetheless. So yeah.
we send doctors to Geraldton, Port Hedland, Rockland, and you have the opportunity to go and you can do all your cordis, so do general surgery, orthopedic, general medicine, and heating. One of the, I think Heather does pediatrics as well. So there is the opportunity. We play around with the matrix a lot. So last year we found that people double rotation, so this year we did the matrix, so only one rotation is done for rural terms, but everything's a negotiation, because some people like to be out there for 2 or 3 terms. So as they've said, just put it in your application, so if you write a cover letter, people do read it. So I would strongly encourage that, because you are a person and not a number. So that would help.
Probably echo both of those, like the matrix is what it is, but historically it's going to trade market up. So if you're interested in real terms, you make that clear.
And I'll just add to that point, just remember when you apply to a hospital that you'll be applying to their peripheral sister sites as well. So for us, it's Joondalup and Osborne Park, and then we have our rural sites as well. So you can potentially have terms there. And I can't remember off the top of my head what Fiona Stanley and Royal Perth are, but it's always good to look at where they also have their peripheral posts as well, and where their rural posts are as well, if you're interested in that. All right, any other questions? Yes.
We heard before some commitment to a quick care training pathway, which would be of equal quality to the very good BPCS. Did that wrong? A surgical pathway. Just wondering how, like, 1, 3, indefinite, are we seeing how well formed that quick care pathway is? Is that something that's relevant to us, or is that something that will probably come more in future years? I'm not sure. Sorry, looking both ways. Who would be best placed to answer that? Sorry.
We've actually got a slide coming up which will actually explain that, but it's exciting, but I'll get to it when we get to that slide.
Thank you very much.
Just on that topic, so in my engineer, actually was really lucky, so I got a very quick care. Yeah, so I got to do ICU, ED, and cardiology. I think we've got quite a good term. Very student care. I think it's really often as we do it as an intern. I don't do that a lot. And I got to do it heaps.
Yes.
Do you know if and when hospitals transition to digital?
I mean, I would love, yeah.
You've asked the question. You're a member of our board in disguise. Yeah.
Our paper is quite charming. Oh, sorry. So when are we moving to the 21st century? We're getting an ICU electronic medical record this year, finally, thank heavens. The main issue was a lack of funding from state government, and they finally announced $100 million towards the EMR coming in. Now, we're pushing very hard to be the first site on the rollout, other than Fish, of course, and so we're expecting it end of this year, start of next. But you can be assured that as much as I love our paper and our faxes and all our great things about being at Charlie's, we are pushing very hard to get an EMI very quick.
Just to clarify, WA's estate doesn't actually have an EMR. It has a DMR, which is basically a scanning photocopy record. So as George mentioned, there's an election commitment for the state because it's something that happens at all hospitals. So a true EMR is what we're talking about, is what's in the digital state strategy roadmap. Will it happen in your intern year? Unlikely, but it is on the pipeline. So, any other questions? Pretty good. No texts on your phone?
The only thing was that people online couldn't hear the question, so I apologize for that. But I just want to give final opportunity. Anyone want to have a question about day-to-day life or anything that you think would be good for our community while they're here to answer? Oh, there we go. Gentleman in the blue.
It's not about day-to-day life, but how much does like your placement at that hospital, get weighted to going there? Like, for example, I've had 120 at Charlie's, and then I applied to do a bed this year, and I've obviously been given it all after the application was due. So I was just wondering how heavily weighted it is.
I'll just repeat your question first, just for the people online. So the question was basically about how heavily weighted we take your medical school placements in regards to your applications for particular hospitals. And I feel like the consensus is that no, it doesn't matter at all, basically. They don't look at that. It's mostly about what you actually write in your cover letter and what you answer in the questions and your CV. So yeah, it's not about your experience at a hospital. You'll pick up the system when you get to that hospital, so that it's not really a consideration. But it's a good question. I did see another hand. Yes.
What sort of wellbeing supports are in place for junior doctors?
That's a great question. I'm going to turn you over to Venice actually, because she's our wellbeing officer.
If not then it's in terms of like, looking, yeah, we've got Stanford and Fiona, like, I don't want to be on the kids stuff, but she also recently made this like anti-bullying thing where you can contact her. Like a whole thing, and I'm going to be making some stuff that we're going to put on our social media, our social media page, if you want. About it, so that we can but essentially, I think what she kind of doing is that if you contact her about it, her or someone else can't remember the person, but contact her about it, and then they'll probably have a chat with the head department if you want her to, and try and sort out issues. And there's we also got Stanford in victimization, so if you said person they're having trouble with compliance, like, oh, they're going to get that.
Yeah, bullying is something we definitely don't stand for.
I think it's also important to mention like fair day, wellbeing, DCR's always got it's really, and I think someone's a really nice person to me out, especially working after hours and very much. There is there's a sort of hospital network that has wellbeing team that work here, not specific to junior doctors or anything. It's sort of representatives of some pretty large hospital culture. But it's also something we do a fair bit of as well as a society. It's a lot like what you said, that we continue to chat to hospital executives and that sort of stuff if we identify issues. Yeah.
Sorry, Tim, I really appreciate what you're saying, but just in the interest of time, because we do have a bit more to get through.
That's why she's the president.
I'm just going to leave this up here. So there's a QR code, my email, our RMO Society email. If you want more specifics or you have any more questions, just pop that on your phone and we'll answer that and get back to you. But I'll also be here after if you want to get more feedback on wellbeing and all the stuff that we do. Thanks, guys.
Put your hands together for our RMO Society. So you've heard from our junior doctors. I might now invite Dr. Andrew Gardner up just to say a brief spiel. Oh no, you're in first. Yeah. So he's our chair of our CSA, and that's the Clinical Staff Association. He's an experienced anesthesiologist, anesthetist, has been a consultant here for many years, and he'll say a few words from a senior doctor's perspective.
Thank you, Deepan, for that slightly inaccurate introduction.
I do my best, please.
Yeah. Normally, it's my job to say acknowledgement of country, but we've been at a Clinical Association meeting tonight. But as I walk down the hospital corridors, I see works of art from Indigenous artists, not only from the lands on which we meet today, but from right across Western Australia and actually across the border into Northern Territory, where we get some of our patients from. I think it's a reminder that probably the best way we can work towards reconciliation is to reduce the discrepancy in outcome between Indigenous and non-Indigenous patients, and I hope you'll join all the senior staff in that quest. The Clinical Association exists as an association of the consultant staff of the hospital. Traditionally, I think it was thought of as a place where once a month they'd gather for wine tasting and cheese. and mull over what the hospital was doing. But now we're pretty active in seeking engagement with the executive about how we can improve the hospital. This is a great hospital. On the outside, apologies in advance to anyone who drives a beat up old Toyota, but my partner does. On the outside, it looks like a beat up old Toyota, but inside it functions like a Rolls Royce. It's a fantastic hospital. I was an intern. I owned an old Rolls Royce, but that's another story. I was an intern up the road, and I came here as a registrar, and I couldn't leave the place. So it is a great hospital. I suppose the message of that is that you need to be prepared to be flexible in what you decide to do. To be honest, every hospital in Western Australia is a good hospital to do an internship in, but you're not going to be locked into that forever. Why would I pick this one? A, because it's a great hospital. B, because the senior staff are engaged. C, because we are such a subspecialised hospital. And for a lot of people who leave the hospital system, this is the last time they can become engaged and find out about things such as neuroradiology or neurosurgery. So if you choose a career where you're outside the teaching hospitals, this might be an opportunity to find, to gain some experience, understanding of these very specialty areas, and make contacts with people who you can contact in the future when you're worried about patients in this situation. I suppose flexibility is the key thing. This is a pretty flexible hospital. I've already trashed my partner, but I'll trash again. I have the joy of having a partner who is an infectious diseases physician and clinical microbiologist. If anyone had told me 3 years ago that when the phone rang in the middle of the night, it would be not for the anaesthetist, I would have told you that you should have all seen a psychiatrist. You need to be flexible. The world changes, so it doesn't matter where you start. You need to be adaptable, but I reckon this is a great place to start. One last thing I would say is that it's not easy being an intern, and this hospital is very good at supporting people in their intern year and beyond. But if you haven't found somebody who is a senior clinician, who's a mentor to you, see if you can find somebody between now and your commencement as a junior doctor, because things don't always go well, and sometimes you get bad outcomes despite the best of your intentions and choosing the right treatments. And it's just nice to have somebody that you can throw some ideas off, chat to, who's not going to be judgmental. So if you haven't found somebody yet, see if you can find somebody who you're prepared to talk to in the future. I had a mentor who looked after me for the first 25 years of my medical career. In the last 7 years, I probably mentored her into retirement. So the roles have been reversed, but I have valued that every day. So if you can find somebody who you can click with, try and find them, because you'll really appreciate them in the future. I think I've said enough. Thanks very much, and I hope you choose us. We're a great hospital.
Thank you very much, Andrew. So now I'm going to introduce Dr. Paul Woods. Despite he may be timid and meek on outside, he has been one of the most senior consultants in this organization. He pretty much built ICU here with his bare hands. Is responsible for training. Most of us have been interns through him, and he also is Santa Claus. So Paul is going to come by and talk to you because he is your mentor, and a lot of you will be touching base with him when you start your internship here next year. But he has a wealth of experience, and he's trained all of us, or been a mentor for all of us, and I cannot think of a better person for the job. So put your hands together for Paul.
Thanks, Deepan. That's going to be a bit hard to follow. Much of what I'm going to talk about has probably been covered in the previous talk, so I know we're running short of time and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. But in recognition of Andrew's last comments, you won't know how valuable a mentor is until you've had one and or lost one. So it's certainly something that I would be a great advocate for. And if you can't find a mentor, we will try and help you once you start here. That's assuming you're all coming here. So why come to Charlie's? That's part of your first decision. And a lot of this has been said, but it's a great place to work. It's actually a very friendly place to work, and you'll have a great time here. I think I've probably been here longer than just about everybody else in the room. And it's the happiest hospital I've worked in. I've never worked in an unhappy hospital, but this is the happiest. It has its ups and downs, but it always bounces up again if there is a downtime. From your perspective, there's a huge focus on education and learning. And the more you learn, the better teacher you become for the people who follow you. And that's also a focus for us. And you have a dedicated team working to make your experience here the best that we can. And there's also a strong emphasis on well-being, which has been alluded to. And there are a number of different programs in place, not just from the hospital, but also from the colleges in the specialties. So what can you expect? A whole new world. Changing from student to a doctor is a very big change. And it's an exciting change. So what you'll get with us, and excuse me, I've got a bit of hay fever if I have to blow my nose now and again. You'll get a comprehensive orientation so to get you underway before you actually have to have contact directly with patients. You'll have an opportunity to shadow a current intern just to get a good idea of what the job is all about and what you need to come to grips with early so that you're not going into it completely blind. We try to do mentoring for the interns, but because it's right at the beginning, it's very hard to do that. And some of you may already have mentors, some of you don't. And establishing that relationship when you're working such long hours may be quite difficult. So we've developed a buddy system to buddy you up with somebody else who's done this before, so that you've got a go-to person that you can ring up and talk to if there's something you're struggling with. And there will be mentorship and guidance, and a lot of that will come in the first instance for you from the Medical Education Office. And if you have any issues whatsoever, don't be shy. We expect to hear from you. And of course, unless you do, we won't know what's going on, and it's very hard to find out. Oh, sorry about the text, that's gone a bit small. So you've heard about the specialties here. You'll get a very broad experience. There's a large range of specialties and subspecialties that range from one end to the other. And as an example, I spent 6 months as the head of radiation oncology for various reasons out of ICU, and I've never done any radiation oncology before that, but that was quite an experience. There are a number of state-based services here, and that's not the comprehensive list. You saw those on another slide. But from an ICU perspective, when NISWA opened up the stroke service, we received 300 admissions through that, just through the ICU in the first year that it operated. So it is a very busy service. It's the only one that works 24 hours a day. You'll get a huge amount of experience there. You'll hopefully get some of your preferred rotations. Obviously, it's impossible to give everybody their 5 first choices for their 5 rotations, but pretty much we can generally give at least 2 of your 5 preferences. But just bear in mind as you go through this, a lot of you don't know what you want to do, and even those of you who do may change that once you've experienced something else. So try and approach them all with an open mind and enjoy them and get the most out of them. You'll have a structured educational program which you can rely on to be available to you every week, and we expect you to try and attend that. And for those of you who are not based here, it's available online. So if you're on one of the rural rotations, or if for any good reason you can't attend in person, we'll make that available to you online. And that teaching time is protected. So your seniors know that you're supposed to attend it, and there should be no block except under exceptional circumstances for you to attend. There will be some opportunities for research involvement, but at this early stage of your career, they're going to be relatively limited. But if the opportunity presents, grab it with both hands and get involved. The Medical Education Unit is there to support you throughout your time at Charlie's, and if there are any issues, we would like to know about them, and we can come and help you manage them. And there are so many colleagues waiting to teach you. In some of the reviews of the departments, some of the comments about the standard of teaching is quite extraordinary. So you have a lot to look forward to. Now, the way the foundation year is going to go from next year is changing, but there are changes in progress to make sure that whatever assignments you are put in, they will allow you to meet your registration requirements. And I think that's really important, but the details of that are all still in the melting pot a little bit being worked out. I think those next three subjects have all been covered pretty well, so I won't make any further comments on those. What are our goals? Well, it will be hard work. There's no shirking that. There's sometimes long hours, sometimes extraordinarily busy, and there are other times when it's a bit quieter. But the hard work can be great fun, and it's a huge learning experience. And it's putting into practice what you've been learning for the last 5 years. So you really want to now find out what it's all about. This is the exciting part, and taking it to another level where you can become a junior doctor. You'll learn things about communicating with other staff, communicating with patients, and hopefully with practical skills as well. It will lead you to becoming a caring and compassionate doctor. And there are even awards in the hospital for those who perform compassionately and caringly. So in summary, this is a hugely exciting time for you. And you know, congratulations on getting where you've got to. And we hope after you've heard what you've heard tonight that many of you, if not all of you in the room, will want to come here. Above all, it should be a fun experience. There will be times where it's hard and it's stressful, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to look back and say, wow, that was something else and I really enjoyed it. So without further ado, I will hand on to Dina.
Thank you, Paul. So you heard from our excellent units in MedEd and executive. So the other big unit that you'll obviously be dealing with is medical workforce. So I'll hand over to Dina, who's our manager.
So this is what doctors look like who don't work for Charlie's. They're in the dark. Pretty much, they're in the dark. These are all our hospitals that we send out to. So I'm going to keep this very short because Robbie's already said these are our peripheral sites. So we do send doctors to PCH. So we have secondments to PCH, King Eddie's, Joondalup. I can't see because I don't have my glasses on. Aussie Park and WAC sites. So Albany, Geraldton, Port Hedland and Karratha. And these are what the doctors look like who work at Charlie's. So these are all our rostering specialties. And this will be done with the new framework and it will be explained to you. So we have all the pathways, the surgical, crit care, generalist and medical.
And to the gentleman who asked about crit care, we have a strong crit care pathway. So you can see some of the terms we have there. One of the exciting things we're trying to work on is for anesthetics as well for next year, but we're in the process of working through that. So ideally, we want to try and get a good critical experience through ICU, ED, MAU, cardiology. So there are abilities or exposures, both as an intern or resident, as you go through your years. So we also have peripheral sites. So Joondalup has an ICU term. We have an ICU term. If you're interested in GP, we have obs and gynae, PCH, peds. So there's a wide spectrum of everything for everyone. So I guess this slide, as Dina highlights, talks to you about all the medical and surgical specialties. And I think it's important to remember we're a tertiary quaternary hospital. So it's not medicine as in gen med. So we have renal, we have hepatology, we have hematology. We have a whole bunch of specialties as you start training through, you can get exposure to. Surgical, we're statewide neurosurge, statewide knee swap. So, and you also have rural rotations in nice places down by the coastline, if you like going down south. So I think that hopefully answers your question somewhat about the, yeah, okay, perfect.
He gave away my anesthetic thing.
Yeah, I know, it was your idea.
So your rotation, your internship, you'll get to be able to pick through a matrix pretty small, but you can sort of see how it works. So this is based on the new system.
So PMCW will be, as you know, for next year for all intent is a new system. It essentially means you have the same terms, but you can see with the amount of specialties there, it's a lot. So you'll get a lot of choice to mix and match. So it's a bit like choosing pizza. So instead of being stuck on like one slice, you can mix and match your pizza a bit. But there are 4 core areas that you need to know what you're doing, which are termed chronic undifferentiated illness, acute illnesses, etc., etc. Most of what it is isn't too important because we will guide you through the process when you get there.
Yeah.
But the idea is that all of the specialties you saw on the slide before are available. So they all fall into different streams. So it gives you more opportunity. So for those of you who come and work at Charlie, so anyway, you'll get a bit more of idea. We'll guide you through the process of what you have to do. It'll be all done through SurveyMonkey or simple electronic link. So you don't have to use pieces of paper.
And if you want to, I'm sorry,
There you go.
if you want to have a look at something like that, we can give this to Robbie and she can put it on her Charlie's RMO Society page. So if you guys are part of their Instagram or whatever it is, then that way you can actually have a better insight to what it looks like. Is that okay? So I don't really have anything to say. The only thing is, does anyone want to ask me a question?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do for anaesthetics for next year.
First one, super simple, medical workforce. Is that the healthcare sector's equivalent of human resources?
No.
What do you do?
Good question.
How much time do you have?
Good question. So basically medical workforce does all your contracts. It onboards you. So we give you all your IT access, security access when people are asking about parking. So what will happen is you'll get emails from us saying, thank you you've been successful. You're going to get a contract. Here's a contract, sign it. Now we're going to onboard you to put you on the systems because we all know how much you want to be paid. So you need to do your paperwork so we can pay you. It's important to be paid. So we do all of those things. We help you with your Medicare provider and prescriber numbers. We ensure that you can get your parking. We make sure that if you have, someone talked about well-being and everyone talked about well-being at work, but there's also things that go on out of work. And I have a lot of interactions and my team have a lot of interactions with the junior doctors about their home life and things that happen and they don't want other people to know. So we are also involved in helping them navigate not coming to work, getting their shifts covered and being able to help them take time off if they need to.
Yes.
So we do a lot of things that is not written anyway.
So I think the best way to think of it, as Dina explained, is human resources is for the whole hospital, but because doctors are especially important, we get our own medical workforce. So Dina and her team not only look after you as an intern, they look after all the consultants, the registrars, the RMOs, everybody. So they are the medical workforce that will be on the step of your journey everywhere from when you start as an intern all the way to when you become a consultant. So basically they look after anything medical.
Basically.
So,
and I actually am old school, so I do read every application because the selection criteria is the same. So I do encourage people to put in a CV so we can understand and know who you are as people, because I'm a firm advocate about making sure that I'm aware and know my interns and know my junior doctors. So I do print them out. Yes, I know, I'm killing the environment. And I make notes on them and I highlight things. So when you start, I know that you have a dog and his name's Charlie and he's naughty and he's done this. And I know that you live with 5 people and, I know that your partner works here and that you want to have the same rotation. So I know a lot of things about a lot of people because at Charlie's and in our medical workforce team, we treat everybody as a person and not as a number. So that's why a cover letter is very important. Yes.
Yeah, just for one cover letter thing, we kind of got told that unless you had a more specific request, the cover letters weren't super necessary.
It's not necessary. You don't have to do one, but it just makes people know who you are. That's all. So,
Is Charlie still sending interns out to help? Is that helping hospital? Hiring
It was Pioneer Health, and I don't know if that's going to happen next year. There's still discussions that might not happen.
And if you're interested in part-time internship, how does that work?
So we have a lot of part-time interns that goes over 2 years, and some people do their core rotation. So basically you do 2 terms of ED, 2 terms of surgical, 2 terms of medical, and then sometimes people decide they want to do full-time in a particular. So you might do a year and a bit as part-time and then decide to go full-time. But basically what we do is, as an intern, we try and do all your core rotations first, and you do 2 terms of them. So you get your requirements.
Sorry, I might have misunderstood the previous slide with the critical care term, ICU, cardiology, as ED.
For the rotation. So,
You want me to answer
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so it's a bit complicated because the system is changing. So Maurice is here from PMCW, but historically you used to have to do a core medical, a core surgical, and an ED term. Moving forward in the new structure, what will happen is terms fall under different groupings, so under chronic disease or acute disease, etc. So what will happen is, depending on where terms lie, there's a primary and a secondary classification. This is a bit of a complex topic, so it's going to take, like, unless you want to spend an hour talking about it, and this is a student night. That's why, so what will happen is you pick a criteria. So say if you, for example, go, I'm interested in critical care, you still need to do as an intern some surgical terms or some medical terms that fit the other criteria. So, you know, it's a bit different to when you're an RMO because you still need to meet your core requirements. So as long as terms fall into a specific core requirement, you can do that. So you won't get a year where you do pretty much all ICU or all ED or whatever, but say you're interested in ICU and you write a good reference sheet, or you get picked for whatever the rotations are, you may get an ICU term, maybe an ED term, and that'll form part of your critical care backbone, and then you'll still have to do a surgical term, a medical term, whatever.
That being that, like saying cardiology and got that I can do internally without doing ED because I'm doing it.
I'm not, can we take this
Yeah.
off?
Yeah, we might.
And then we can explain it a bit better.
Yeah. Yep. Any other questions? Yep. Yeah.
Charlie's a dog and 2 kids.
Mhm.
If we get a rural placement for after a week for a rental.
Yeah.
do we
No,
start with
WACS.
accommodation, or-
So accommodation is paid by WACS.
Yep.
So if you get seconded to a peripheral site, so to WACS provides accommodation.
compatible with family and pets.
Yes, so we do, they have requirements. So we do ask that if you need family and if you have pets, we do ask for that. It's not always guaranteed, it's what they have, but they are moving with the system.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Thanks, Dina. So we were going to talk about research opportunities at Charlie's, and we were going to have one of our doctors present to you, but they're unfortunately not able to make it today. So I'll just be pretending to talk like I know about research. So there's a lot of research opportunities here, and it's done by the Department of Research. As you know, at Charlie's, we're lucky to be co-partner with a lot of researchers. So we have the Harry Perkins Institute, Pat West, Perrin, and Lions Eye. So there's a lot of research opportunities. I think the other thing to remember is there's always opportunities for research at various levels or forms. So, you know, starting from things like audits to actually full-blown research where you have to apply through an HREC system. But opportunities are there. And one of the things I can recommend our Charlie's is we have a lot of what I call research gods here. So there are lots of consultants who are world leaders. So for example, in medical oncology, we have Dr. Anna Novak, has done lots of research. In respiratory, we have Professor Gary Lee, world-class in pleural research, flies off to conferences all the time. You know, there's groundbreaking research happening in our sarcoma institute. So, you know, Dr. Rupert Hodder does a lot of work with sarcomas. We actually have a dedicated director of research, Dr. Aaron Shakira, who's a nephrologist by trade, but also does transplant. and is a walking biostatistician. So he'll just speak to you in numbers and intervals. So out of the 40 something specialties we almost have research embedded. Even just recently, one of our hepatology units for liver and transplant, Professor George Garris, published a paper. There's multiple publications in Lancets, MJA, and literally there's lots of scope and opportunities because of the nature of it. Now, when you first start in research, it's a whole different world, and you're focused on what's research, what's available, but what's important is there's opportunity here. So you are working with people who are cutting edge in their fields. We've got radiation oncology, so latest cyber knife treatments. We've got new things happening in neurosurgery all the time, latest techniques, innovation. There's just a lot to keep going on it. So I think the most important thing to learn about research is there's lots of opportunities. When you first start, you'll be busy learning clinical stuff. Don't feel like as an intern when you start, you have to take everything on your plate or it goes away. Research is a lifelong thing. These are relationships you'll bond and form with your mentors over a period of time. Research articles don't happen overnight. They take about years to publish. So as you may or may not know, but it's high quality research. So you have the opportunity to be involved in lots of trials. You also get the opportunity to travel. You can claim on tax. And you can use it in your CV. These are transferable skills for the rest of your life. So simple when you start in all of those departments that you get to work with, all that are exciting, touch base with your clinical mentors. There's pretty much a research in every single one of them. We have very strong links with the universities. So, whether you're UWA, Notre Dame, Curtin, we have a dean. We have basically clinicians who work and promote research in each of those areas. Charlie's Foundation of Self, Telethon Institute. And we have a dedicated research department that has all the stuff that you need to navigate, ethics, statistics. A whole new world will be open to you if you choose to pursue down that that avenue. What we also do every year is we have a research symposium where people can present, and it's open to everyone, doctors, nurses, researchers. You get to hear some interesting, cool things that they've been working on. And there's, a large database of research projects. George and I are very committed towards research. Research sits under our portfolio under executive. So there's a whole bunch of research governance frameworks. Long and short of it, Charlie's is a research hub. It's very academic. And the Perkins has good coffee. I think Robbie put that high up there, like God tier level coffee. You would expect it being researchers. They've kind of blended it like Heston Blumenthal. Or you can have coffee from other places. So this is not my role. So this is a bit. So I'm going to kind of come to the end. So we've talked a lot, and you've probably heard a lot about medical education, medical workforce, a lot of stuff about telling you why you're here, what rotations. I mean, you've already come here, you're interested. So coming on from the research side, so, I did a bit of my own statistics on why you should choose Charlie's, and this is research evidence-based. I hope to write a paper on it. So first of all, if you look at the number of letters, I mean, more is better, right? More choice. So we've got 4 letters. Even if you add all the groups, because, we're actually Charlie's and Osborne Park group, so that comes up to 8. That's just like trumping it, like blowing it out of the water. So number of letters is more. So you've got more opportunity. We still hold the honor of being the only hospital to be knighted. Everyone else, I guess you don't wear white coats now. But in 2020, someone did dress up as a knight. So there you go. Coffee shop names, we've got coffee shop names that are kind of medical. Coffee Anatomy, Coffee Code, Rejuvenate. We've got a lot of coffee shops, actually. You won't find that everywhere. And then the Hamptons does a good after hours work, drink, social session, which I can't advocate openly in this forum. But, it's not that far. Parks. So, at Royal Perth, you have Wellington's Park. Who did their medical student at Royal Perth? I mean, like from the current group, has anyone done a week there? Have you gone to Wellington Square, Mark? You should take a taser with you. I would recommend it. Fish was built on a swamp. And then we have Kings Park. So, you know, feel free to jump in. And now that we have a cat bus that goes there free of charge, you can always nip out for Kings Park. And I think finally, like, I know that I'm not tech savvy and people don't really like Google anymore and it's all Instagram or TikTok, but, you know, we looked at Google reviews. And Google doesn't lie to you, right? So, you know, so I think that kind of sells it for me. That's why I come to work. So that kind of brings us to a close tonight. But before we do, firstly, I just wanted to say, no matter which hospital you choose, WA is a great state to work as. I think the difference at Charlie's is you can see there's a lot of senior executive here. And we don't think of you as a number or some person. We see you as a future, as George mentioned. One of you will be doing admin probably tomorrow, the gentleman in the green, I've flagged you already. Some of you are going to be future anesthetists. One of you is going to build a new neuro ICU center. Charlie's is a place for your journey. It's a family more than anything else. None of us here are perfect, except Dr. Andrew Gardner. So realistically, we all have flaws, but we all look out for each other. And that's the main thing about Charlie's. When you enter here, you're entering a family. Being an intern is the best part. I look back to my internship days and it was the best part of being a doctor because, you know, like Robbie said, the first time I did a cannula was great by myself. Now I still can't do a cannula, but you know. In fact, I do medical admin because I'm dangerous and was probably responsible for half the Daytech sims that have started. Isn't that right, George? Yeah, I think so. So I've been banned and they had to find a job for me. But yeah, Paul was disappointed in me. He had high expectations. But I think the important thing is you're going to have some amazing days where you're going to see stuff and it's really cool. And you would have made a difference because you're not a medical student at the end of the bed, writing in some notes and pretending like you had to do something. You will actually be a doctor as part of a team. You have a great responsibility now. It's a bit like Spider-Man. Something about great power and great responsibility. But the reality is you will be making some decisions and you're going to have some amazing days and there are going to be some really tough days. The first day that you have a patient that was under your care who died, something terrible happened. You're going to see some real life events that are traumatic to you because it hits close to home. What you have to remember is you're not alone. You guys are all here as colleagues, but we're also here for you because we've experienced all of that. And what I can say is many years down the track, because I won't reveal how long it was when I was an intern, but many years down the track, this is one of the most rewarding professions you can do no matter where you choose. But at Charlie's, our entire philosophy and vision is you are important, you are the future us. And we are growing the next generation for the future, because if we didn't, there's really no point in what we do. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming and have a great, enjoy, best of luck. You will all pass your exams and we'll see you here at Charlie's next year.
I can honestly say to you, we have two of the best right here, and our whole executive team is united. They're all thinking time. They're one of the most open and communicative groups, and they listen to everything that goes on. But more importantly, they act on it. And if you do want to come here, make sure you address the application criteria, selection criteria on your application. Then you can make sure.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone on Teams.
Thank you.